Dear colleagues, good afternoon. On the agenda of today's Security Council meeting are issues concerning the improvement of state policy in the area of protecting traditional spiritual and moral values. This is an extremely important and timely topic, directly related to ensuring Russia's sovereignty and national interests, strengthening security, harmony and stability in society, addressing the most vital issues for us, such as preserving our people and demographic development, educating younger generations, and ensuring the continuity of our development as a state, a nation, and a society. Traditional values are moral guidelines that have been instilled by our ancestors over centuries. They form the foundation of our civilization and identity, serve as a support in the lives of individuals and families, shape our culture and sovereign worldview, and make us resilient against attempts to impose foreign will upon us. Such values, which define for us the unity of the peoples of Russia, commitment to truth and justice, compassion and humanism, a strong family and love for children, are also mutual assistance and the aspiration to achieve not only personal well-being, but the success of the entire country. And of course, this includes patriotism and devotion to the motherland. It is precisely these values that fuel the creative energy and inspired our ancestors to achieve great accomplishments. And today, they continue to serve as our foundation and guiding principles in the development of our education and upbringing system, so that our children and adolescents deeply understand that being a citizen means knowing and respecting the country's history, not betraying one's roots, and working hard for their loved ones, their local community, and for the fatherland. To take responsibility for its future. And of course, the younger generations must grow up strong, broadly educated, and open to creativity and creation. They should be globally competitive in knowledge and skills, offering their own original ideas and solutions rather than copying those of others. You know, both you and I often have meetings with school children, students, young scientists, workers, engineers, and young people who have already achieved a lot in art, business, and creativity. And I'm confident that we truly have a generation growing up that understands what freedom and responsibility mean, and at the same time is capable of multiplying the social, economic, scientific, and cultural potential of a country that strives to move forward, achieve success, and does not separate its own fate from the fate of Russia. At the same time, we see that in the modern world, the space of values and meaning is subject to intense competition. There is fierce competition there, an aggressive struggle for influence over people's minds. Traditional values are now being declared outdated and archaic. At the same time, so-called neoliberal models are being pushed through models that in practice are essentially totalitarian. Moreover, they are not only being persistently implemented in a number of Western countries, but there is also an active attempt to export them around the world. They have been imposed. And it's clear why. Because by depriving nations of their value foundations, by stripping them of their sovereignty, it becomes easier to subjugate them, to turn them into vassals. That is why it is important to resist attempts to impose on our citizens, especially the youth, attitudes that destroy our values. It is necessary to respond firmly to challenges that provoke interethnic and interreligious conflicts. At the same time, we must understand that isolated bans or attempts to completely shut ourselves off from the global information system, from the global information space, are absolutely ineffective in the modern world. We need to consistently and actively promote our own values, to shape our own humanitarian and cultural meanings that are in demand both in our country and around the world. Russia's position is well known. We stand for respect for the identity of countries and peoples, for their customs and cultures. And in this regard, we have many, many like-minded people and supporters, indeed, all over the world. It is important to coordinate our efforts with our partners in BRICS, the CSTO, the CIS, and with other countries that share our approaches. And of course, we need to remember the lessons of history, to remember what internal turmoil and upheavals have led to almost always fueled and incited from the outside. And those who wanted to weaken Russia have always provoked precisely a rift in values and national unity. It is important for us to preserve and strengthen the unity of our society, to support initiatives aimed at this goal from citizens, public organizations, religious groups, and volunteer associations. Let me remind you that our fundamental value principles are enshrined in the Constitution and in strategic planning documents, including the foundations of state policy for preserving and strengthening traditional Russian spiritual and moral values. In furtherance of this document, a plan of corresponding activities has been implemented since July 1 of last year. It covers not only the humanitarian sphere, but also many other areas. All our regions, ministries, agencies, scientific and cultural institutions, and all levels of education are involved in its implementation. In this regard, I would like to note that the educational component has systematically returned to Russian schools. And this approach is important for children. It is supported by both parents and teachers who understand that upbringing and education are inseparable from each other. It is precisely together that they shape a well-rounded personality. For example, the nationwide weekly lesson, a conversation about important things, has taken a significant place in the educational process. This format is constantly evolving, becoming more interesting, useful, and in demand. Truly remarkable people take part in it. Their achievements, hard work, courage, and heroic deeds serve as an example for the children. These are leaders in their professions, heroes of Russia, and participants in the special military operation. And of course, the children themselves. Public organizations are also actively involved in efforts aimed at educating and shaping the younger generations. I would especially like to highlight the movement of the First and UNARMIA. They bring together millions of children and implement numerous extracurricular educational programs based on traditional values. Let us discuss today how, in general, the action plan for implementing the fundamentals of state policy and for preserving and strengthening traditional values is being carried out. Which tasks have been accomplished and which issues remain problematic? It is obvious that it is important to continue building a systematic state policy in the field of preserving and protecting traditional values for the long term. To achieve this, relevant sections and sets of measures should be included in the strategic planning documents currently being developed. In addition, it is necessary to improve legislative and regulatory acts aimed at protecting traditional values. On May 9th, we celebrated together the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. Fighting for freedom, our people set an inspiring example of unity and patriotism, and preserving the memory of the courage and achievements of the generation of victors holds enormous moral, social, and national significance for us and for our future. I want to emphasize once again that we must continue in any situation to firmly defend the historical truth about the events of the Second World War and about the decisive role our people played in the defeat of Nazism. Systematic work on historical education and on combating the falsification of history must be continued. I consider this to be very important. Let's proceed to the reports. The floor is given to Deputy Prime Minister Tatyana Alexeyevna Gulikova. Please, Tatyana Alexeyevna.